This is Zach Mayfield, filmmaker-YouTuber.
This is Zach Mayfield from 2013.
Okay, I don't believe you.
Check your caller ID.
Alright. I'm so sorry I doubted you. What's going on?
The Canon 70D just got released here, and it's revolutionizing the camera world. I have an informant that tells me you've been somewhat of a Panasonic and Fuji fanboy. It's time to open your eyes to the reality of dual pixel autofocus.
I don't know if I'm ready.
Just know, you're not alone.
Thank you.
Do you guys still have eBay?
Yeah, we do.
Dope. You should snag a 70D and do a retro review on it. I'm sure it'll blow up on YouTube.
Great idea, me. I think I will.
Here's how you can relive a good time over and over again. Just aim, focus, snap. I'd like to show you one of the world's great cameras.
How we doing? The Canon 70D was Canon's first camera ever to implement dual pixel autofocus. Canon's revolutionary technology that's still regarded today as the best camera focusing technology in the biz. This dual pixel autofocus, DPAF, paired with the 70D's awesome color and amazing functionality is what made it a legend among filmmakers and content creators all over the globe. Powerful, powerful. Innovative. Canon 70D. That was the actual Canon 70D highlight video posted in 2013 to announce this camera. I didn't do anything to it other than a little bit of green screen and really talented voiceover. So how the flip does dual pixel autofocus even work? Let me educate you real quick, noob. Inside every camera is a sensor with pixels, but you probably knew that part. But inside the Canon 70D's brand spanking new sensor, each pixel had 2 photodiodes. These little guys are basically best friends, 2 peas in a pod, capturing light together and sending a wealth of information to the motherboard of the 70D, telling it how far away a subject is, whether it's in focus or not. But because there's 2 of them sending these electronic signals, you're getting super incredible fast autofocus. When we hear the word revolution, or as my friends and I say, revolution, a lot of us probably think of the Canon 5D Mark II. That's what we all talk about because it was the first time we got full frame video with true 24 frames per second progressive HD video in a bite-sized body. It was just a little Canon snack. I personally think the 70D was overshadowed by the 5D Mark II. So today, we're gonna give it the love that it always deserved. Love you, baby. One person who may have given this camera a bit too much love is none other than Crazy Neistat.
Oh, look at this. Canon 70D. Oh, now it's definitely broken. I just go through them like Tic Tacs because I really beat the hell out of these things.
Casey made the 70D his personal workhorse camera for his vlogs, which were insanely popular. I think he went through like 4 or 5 70Ds.
5th or 6th.
And Casey using the camera as his personal vlogging camera is one reason I think the camera made so many sales. I got the 70D as my second DSLR ever, RIP T5i. And I can attest to its ability to survive brutal conditions. I shot this music video way back with the 70D and it was in an extremely hot garage, like at least 100 degrees Fahrenheit. It was a complete sweaty sausage fest, but the 70D carried us on its shoulders. And this camera became the popular kid for a reason. Yeah, it had sexy autofocus and internet superstars sitting with it at lunch, but it also packed some extremely good features that deserved popularity. For $1,200 in 2013, you get dual pixel autofocus, a fully articulating touchscreen, which was also a first, by the way, a 20 megapixel sensor, 7 frames per second burst mode, full HD video up to 30 frames per second, 720p video up to 60 frames per second, a headphone jack, mic input, and really good battery life. Keep in mind, this is an absolutely stacked feature set for 2013. We're a bunch of spoiled little brats in 2020 and you know it. And back then there wasn't as much competition between camera companies making smaller cameras. So we really need to appreciate that Canon gave us all these features for a price that was way less than any cinema camera on the market at that point. Spec sheets are one thing, but is the image actually good, even for 2013? Let's see. Meet the new game changer, the EOS Canon 70D. Unlock the full potential of Live View AF. Innovative dual pixel AF. Shoot video like a freaking camcorder. With smooth, fast, and accurate autofocus. I'm sorry, that highlight video goes on forever and it's just hilarious to me. I think we need to bring back those kinds of videos for camera announcements. Anyway, here's some 70D footage. If you had a 70D or a Canon camera way back in 2013 or that time period, you've probably heard of the Technicolor CineStyle profile. Basically, it's just a flat profile, not quite as flat as Canon's log profiles, but similar to that kind of a thing. And it gives you a little bit better dynamic range, so it retains some highlight information. It is a little rough color grading this profile on the 70D because the bit rate and the quality of the 1080 footage isn't a ton. So it kind of falls apart fast, but it's something fun to play with. This is the standard picture profile. You can tell there's not great highlight retention in this color profile, but the colors do look really pretty. And this is standard with the contrast, sharpness, and saturation turned as far down as the camera would let me. This might be the best way to go with this camera. That way you get a little bit of flexibility to grade and post, but it's not so flat that LUTs and stuff will destroy the low quality footage. Can you hush? This is the portrait color profile, landscape, and we're on land, so works well. This is faithful. Looks like I'm losing a little bit of highlights. And this is neutral. I think I would still probably go with either the CineStyle or the standard with all the contrast, saturation, sharpness reduced. Let's not be biased now. The 70D definitely had its flaws. From my experience with the camera back then and now, I would say that its biggest downfall is the aliasing and moire patterns that you see when filming certain surfaces. I remember trying to avoid any surface that had brick because you would just get nasty patterns all over the image. I know it's nerdy and oddly specific, but it defined my experience with the Canon 70D, so figured I'd share it. Also, using this camera in low light situations wasn't a great idea, but it was better than Canon's previous cameras. There's definitely still noise at ISO 800 in low light situations, but the noise pattern was suddenly more fine and grain looking, which I feel like we hear all the time, but it was really true with this camera. In the Canon 7D, you had these huge, blotchy, gross color patterns and artifacts. But on the 70D, the noise artifacts were a lot smaller and you could get away with having them in the image. And this brings up something very cool about the era of the Canon 70D, and that's hacking. Before it was trendy to make camera hack videos on YouTube, us OG Canon shooters were attempting to hack our cameras, downloading flat color profiles to try to get better dynamic range, and installing a little bad boy by the name of Magic Lantern. Do you remember those days? We took the risk of poisoning our cute little 70Ds to hopefully be able to shoot in raw video. But the steps we had to take back then to get these raw video files from the 70D into an editor like Premiere was ridiculous. We are so lucky to have the technology we have today, the raw stuff starting to be implemented into smaller cameras. With the 70D, we had to convert or transcode files and then put them into Premiere, or open them in After Effects or Photoshop first, change them, and then put them into Premiere. It was definitely not worth it for me back then, especially because I had a crappy computer and it couldn't even handle that kind of footage. But man, it was so cool seeing people hacking into their cameras and talking about it in forums and just squeezing out the most quality possible. And the results were actually really beautiful. You were getting way more color depth and just more cinematic images overall. And it's interesting because in 2020, we have access to this really awesome raw technology, but it's still not fully adapted into our smaller camera systems. I think we'll start to see it come into small cameras very soon and be more readily available. But it's interesting that a camera that came out in 2013 with seemingly less processing power was able to handle this type of raw performance. It's really cool. Maybe camera companies are holding back this technology so that we buy their more expensive cameras. X-T3, G2. They both look good, but we need RAW here. I'm sure I'll make a video about it in 2025, so subscribe. Works with like 103 million different lenses. That's super dope. You can even film Pizza. Parrot. You get 20 megapixel sensor for super sick photographies, baby. With a wide ISO range of 100 to 25,600, which is excellent low light performance. So how does the Canon 70D stack up against cameras in 2020? Well, we gotta take a little blast in the past, look at the projected skill level and price bracket that the 70D was marketed to in 2013, and compare that to 2020's skill level and price ranges. To me, it kind of feels like the 70D was our first prosumer camera. It wasn't really normal back then to be shooting wedding films, commercials, music videos on tiny cameras. We're just now getting to the point where prosumer cameras and cinema cameras are kind of becoming very similar in image quality. So it wasn't normal in 2013 yet. That being said, your 70D was kind of a home video camera and shot really high quality footage for its time that theoretically you could do some professional work with. So the 2020 cameras that match that realm are the 90D and M50, obviously, the Sony APS-C cameras, Fuji's APS-Cs, and the Panasonic GH series of cameras. I think I would still pick something like the M50 for me personally over the 70D in 2020. A lot of numbers, tons of numbers in this video. Just the fact that you get 4K in the M50 is kind of a deal breaker for most of us in 2020. But if you're going for your very first camera ever, your first DSLR, I would actually highly recommend the 70D for both photo and video. It's a really good camera to practice with, takes beautiful photos, really good video, and if you decide you don't want to do creative work, you only spend a couple $100 and you can sell it on eBay. Am I crazy or does this footage actually look pretty dang good for a 2013 camera? This camera would be great for starters. And I actually kind of like the little bit bulky body. It's not huge, it's not tiny. Also, this is something I don't think about too often, but it's nice on a camera like this, you can shoot all the way down at ISO 100. I'm used to shooting in log with other cameras where usually your minimum ISO is 400 or even 800 on some cameras. So it's nice you don't need as much ND on a camera like this if you're shooting in a standard profile. I also need to mention that the screen on this camera is actually still really good, even for 2020. It's not as sharp as a lot of camera monitors, but I think it's actually better than the screen on this X-T3 as far as sharpness and detail. It holds up. So slice that pizza and get yourself a slice of EOS 418, baby. I'll always be thankful for this legendary little camera because it helped me discover the thing I love most in this life, and that's making videos. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Retro Review. I had a blast making it, and please let me know in a comment what piece of gear I should look at for the next retro video. Bye. If you're sticking around this long, you probably like my videos, so thank you so much. I just gotta say a huge thank you to my friend David Dove. He wrote the intro track for Retro Review. I'm gonna use it for every episode. Thank you, David. Also, huge shout out to all my patrons on the screen, but especially my top tier patrons who pay $9 or more a month. You guys are saving my booty right now during quarantine, so I'm gonna shout out all of you guys right now. Andrea, Brandon Stager, Christian Reddle, Dylan Cabral, Elisha Ruman, Hannah Markley, Josh Huey, Cash Carter, Kellen Gillespie, Kyle Schaefer, Michael Mayfield, that's my dad, Michael Weeble, Nate Christian, Rhonda Mayfield, and Zach Thayer. I love you guys all so much. Thank you for supporting me. Thank you for watching this video. Have a good one. Granny, I love you, baby.